Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, slaves of the global plantation. The Vinny Eastwood Show is bad news. It's like the news, but worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child trafficking Satanists is Vinny's jokes. I mean, seriously, they're just awful. And my very special guest joining me today is Cory Endrulat from the One Great Work Network. How's it going, bro? Good to see you. And
how's it going?
Well, like I always say, somewhat fabulous. Other than that, like shit. Thanks for asking. I have a number of sponsors and things of that nature, and we are, in fact, going to be broadcasting live on the People for People network, peopleforpeople.ning.com. You have to go in and get yourself a little account there in order to listen to it, because it's private and we can say anything we want on this network. And I want to thank Gaz for inviting me on. And as well as, of course, our home, the One Great Work Network.com. One Great Work Network.com is also streaming the show. Now, we have archives on the VinnyEastwoodShow.com, ladies and gentlemen. Just click on Show Archives and it'll bring you to the page with all the updated archives that the wonderful Julia is uploading to Odyssey, Rumble, and BitChute and that kind of thing for us. And if you click on one of the archives, ladies and gentlemen, in there you will see that Julia has her donation details there as well. You can become one of her Patreons. You can donate to her through KiwiBank or set up automatic payments or one-off donations through PayPal there to support her archiving efforts, because when we got deplatformed, there was 10, 15 years of the Vinny Eastwood Show archived on that thing through YouTube. And now all of those links are dead due to the deplatforming. So it's a monstrous task to go through the Odyssey and the BitChute and all of the things that we can and try to link up and put new archives, as well as, of course, just archiving the shows that we're doing very regularly. We have a sponsor, Reopen.nz, a directory of anti-mandate, pro-choice, all-inclusive businesses in New Zealand. So if you want to add your business there, go to Reopen.nz. Our sponsor, HoldenHealthcare.com, emphasis on the care. David Holden's a naturopathic specialist oncologist in hard-to-treat cases. So if you've been through the medical ringer and getting side effect after side effect and you're not getting any better, maybe it's time for a full evaluation of what is really affecting your health, and that's what Holden Healthcare does. Get to know you and what you're doing and how it's affecting you. We have a band, Vinny and the Vendettas. You can click on the tab on the homepage of the VinnyEastwoodShow.com, and you can go there and see our music videos, and I've just been making tracks and stuff like that later. We're working on an update of Rasputin by Boney M. It's called Jar Jar Cinder. Jar Jar Cinder, New Zealand's Joseph Mengele. She wants to stick that jab in your arm. If you are a donor, ladies and gentlemen, please do go to the homepage of thevinnieeastwoodshow.com and click on the donate tab. And if you donate, you can request a guest, have a private call with me, get my help with your media project or idea, or access the Secret Donors Club on Facebook. And if you've already donated, go to the bottom of the donate page and click here for those special rewards and contact details there. And you can donate through PayPal. We encourage you to set up a weekly and monthly automatic payments with there, as well as to the KiwiBank, and you can become a Patreon of the band on Patreon as well, ladies and gentlemen, that to support the show that way. All right. That is the length and breadth of it today. We've got our very special guest, Cory Endrulat, who I haven't had on the show before, and I'm not overly familiar with his work. So Cory, without, as I say in Israel, further ado, why don't you just tell the listeners and myself a little bit about who you are and what it is you do?
Yes, sir. My name is Cory Endrulat. I am a content creator on the One Great Work Network, but I'm also on pretty much every other platform that is alternative because, like you said, they can exterminate us at any time. But if it weren't for that, I guess it would be slightly less fun. You're correct on that. I can't debate that. I'm sorry, you win. So it is a little bit more fun being on the edge of things, but unfortunately, all the bad things are happening in the world. So I cover all of it. I do. I make documentaries. I do interviews like you do. I'm creating a huge summit. I'm creating a newspaper where anybody can contribute. They can stay completely anonymous and they can still contribute. I have all these different plans coming up of people just trying to collaborate, which is really cool because then, everybody can get together. That is my goal. So that way we can move forward into the future with a lot more other ideas and other projects that I have lined up. In addition to that, of course, I wrote a couple books and did a couple other things, but big whoop, we'll talk about that. We'll get into all the juiciness of it. I'm streaming on my end, twitch.tv/CoconutTV, because I'm also a streamer. I do a show every Friday now. I used to do one on Tuesday. I think I followed you every Tuesday. And when you had your whole accident problem there in New Zealand, per se, I was covering that, actually. I was like, man, what happened to Vinny Eastwood? What's going on? And I'm sorry about that, dude. First of all, like that was crazy what happened to you. For anybody who doesn't know, I mean, that was crazy. And I made sure to like cover that. I was like, and I caught it live. Somebody mentioned it to me, like the producer on the network. And I'm like, really? Vinny Eastwood, he was just on the street and this thing happened to him. I don't know how much you want me to go into detail, but I was like, darn, man, I'm so sorry that happened.
Yeah, it was not ideal.
Yeah.
And there's still people out there wondering what happened to Vinny Eastwood. He went from 65,000 subscribers to maybe 10 to 15 listeners.
Mm.
That's what deplatforming plus being arrested and being banned from accessing the internet and stuff like that can do to you in this business, ladies and gentlemen. I don't advise it.
Yeah, dude, but you're holding strong and you're brave. And like, I just say, like, literally, you, thank goodness, man, you've been at this for a long time, probably longer than me, especially just with the live streams. That takes a lot of effort, going live and doing hour-long shows. I mean, I was doing 6-hour streams. I was like destroying myself by the end of it. But then I started to cut down the time on that and focus on video work and other things. I really, really like your stuff, dude.
Oh, thanks, bro. Well, on screen, people can see it's The Day Democracy Died. You can look for that on the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. It's uploaded to various platforms, a little documentary I made about the arrest. And I would like more people to see it because it is, basically, if you're under the illusion that the United States or the UK or New Zealand or Australia or any of the Five Eyes nations or Canada for that matter have any concern for your freedom of speech, your rights and things like that in the face of this pandemic, you got to really take a serious reevaluation of your perspective of reality. And I think this documentary really shows that, is that we are out there, we're talking about facts, we're peaceful, and then they just come in with the truncheon. And that was precisely the lesson that the protesters in Wellington did not learn, is that these people will use force, regardless of whether or not they're in the right, or if they've got any justification for it. They will use force to move you on, and they will use the courts and the media and things like that to demonize and destroy you and that kind of thing. So that's essentially what happened to me and Billy TK. I mean, Billy TK's on the People for People .ning.com as well as I am now. But we're forbidden from having any contact with each other, direct or indirect. Still to
Wow.
this day, I'm still forbidden from talking about rather encouraging anybody to breach COVID-19 rules. But because of the censorship, you really can't talk about vaccines or COVID-19 on the air now anyway, because you're going to lose everything else that you've got, which is Oh my goodness, it's a frustrating time that I'm living through at the moment, and financially as well is pretty significantly strained at the moment. So yeah, it's not something I recommend anybody do is go out and get yourself arrested for the cause and stuff like that, because the amount of damage that it does to you far outweighs
Right.
the good that it does.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you're not the only one though struggling. I'll tell you that. I mean, there's a lot of people out there, and I think some people can feel you. Of course, the prices are rising. People are struggling. People see that there's a collapse on the way. I mean, there's a whole bunch of potentialities. The most important thing is that if you can keep a good mentality going forward, and it seems like you do. You seem like you're pretty strong. You're still heading there. Like you're still doing what you got to do, which is why I had to thank you for that. Like you're still live streaming. You're still putting out the content. That's all. That's all I can ask, man. That's dedication. That's persistence to the cause, right? Which is deeper than politics, deeper than what's on the surface. Like, yeah, COVID, all the stuff they don't want us talking about. Well, fine. Let's not talk about it then. I mean, not necessarily talk about it. We don't have to. We can talk about the philosophy. Let's talk about the root cause to the problem. Statism, right? The belief in authority, natural law, where our rights come from, what freedom is. I mean, these are conversations at least we can talk about without getting too censored at the moment because it deals with philosophy and we're not touching the day-to-day topics that get all the attraction. The only problem is they get all the attraction and people want to look at all the things that rise to the surface, such as COVID or whatever. And so, we don't always have to talk about that, but it is something that is important to talk about because, yeah, it's affecting people's lives. It's affecting their health in ways that they obviously don't want people talking about. And that's why they're censoring it. I mean, they expose themselves, their own agenda. And that's why I think people should generally enjoy their lives and do their thing, because the bad people, the evil people, whatever you want to call them, in whatever culture, whatever religion or whatever, they follow. It's not up to them. It's up to us. It's up to the people who run this world are us. We're the ones who give them power through our belief called statism, through our belief in authority, which is what statism is. And I call that mental slavery through my books. And I particularly target slavery. Like if you want a very brief intro for me, I call myself an abolitionist. I have no other term to describe myself because I'm simply a human being. For me being an abolitionist, I'm saying right now we have to realize that we're free by nature. And there's something that exists that doesn't naturally exist. May you say it's this man-made pharmaceutical drug or this man-made political script. Either or, they're not natural and they're not intended. They're not moral for our society. Society is moving toward a purpose, a destiny, and we need to follow that destiny. That destiny is freedom. And we can live that freedom. We can have fun on the process, and that's why I like your show because you kind of add more humor into things. But we can express that freedom, and that freedom gives us that ability to have fun. That freedom gives us the ability to have humor. And you see that the NPCs, the people who follow orders, and the people who follow the politics, that's not fun. Come on, like, does anybody really think that's fun? Most people I talk to, it's like they don't want to talk about politics, but they're talking about politics because maybe they feel like it, or maybe somebody's running for office because they feel like they have to run for office. But I'm saying no, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, I
Why?
mean, seriously, you come up and talk about the abortion laws, and it just sucks the life right out of the room.
Yeah. I mean, there's deeper subjects at hand, and of course, there's a lot of distractions that may rise to the surface on the media, and some people may not believe these things that I'm saying, such as statism or what I'm talking about with the media. But the point is to get my intentions clear. Is my intent to create freedom? Because that's all I want. If I'm an abolitionist, what that means is I want to end slavery. Can we understand the nature of slavery? We can. That is ownership over another individual, their life, or their property. Now, think about what a law does. It's claiming ownership over their life and property because it's telling people what to do with their own lives. That's an issue with me. And abolition says get rid of that. It doesn't say here's an ideology, here's a political ideology. It's Republican, it's Democrat, it's anarchism, it's libertarian. No, it's not ideology, it's an action. What we need is an action in this world, and that is getting rid of what doesn't belong. And ever until we find out what we must do as humanity, we're just going to suffer the consequences. So in World War II, when you have the millions of deaths through the number one form of unnatural death, democide, which a lot of people are still unaware of greatly in the majority of society. I mean, until people recognize why that happened, it's just going to happen again because the causal factors were not considered. That is statism. That is the belief in authority, people order following, and just letting things happen. Until that gets addressed, there's just going to be more and more problems. So instead of being the willing slave or being the slave, be free. That's abolitionism. That's real anarchism. No rulers, no masters, no slaves, no president, no minister. It doesn't matter. You own yourself. You don't need that. Once you have the knowledge of ownership and sovereignty over yourself, you don't need that. And now there's even people organizing to create those voluntary societies right now. And they're called the Common Law Assembly in the U.S. And there's many places throughout the world who are doing the same thing. Some people might call them the sovereigns movement. Well, they're not. They're more organized than the sovereigns movement, and that's what gives them the advantage. I did an interview on my channel with somebody who is very knowledgeable in the Common Law Assembly, and they have so much knowledge, and they're helping people prepare, and they're getting stockpiles. They're doing all this amazing stuff to create that voluntary society right now. Now, could they use more help when it comes to the knowledge of natural law and natural rights and defining those things, getting more grounded as to our nature? Yeah, of course. Right? That's the role of teachers and guides. And the work is never finished. The one great work always goes on. But the question is, can we create change now? And I'm saying, yeah, we can. Not just from learning what it is that we need to know, but learning what it is we need to act. That's a whole nother ballgame. And as far as I'm aware of, not a lot of people have talked about action. At least as much as I am through a lot of my works. And I'm just going to put that straight out there. I don't know a lot of people who are talking that much about action, especially in independent media. I would love to see it in independent media a lot more. And I've been very critical of independent media for that purpose because, some of them want to play the left versus right game. Some of them just want to get the clickbait and talk about the latest news story. But perhaps that is what the establishment wants. That's what the media wants. That's what gives them the clicks.
It controls them the narrative.
Yeah, exactly. So
I had that realization one day. I was just like, hold on a second here. I'm covering the news every day. Whose news articles am I watching? I'm doing the mainstream news articles, right? That's what gets the hits. That's what everybody is looking at. And that means that the mainstream media is controlling my show. It's controlling my narrative. It's controlling what I'm talking about. Now, on the same token here, there is a place to counter spin the media as it were. However, I've looked into the possibilities of doing that, and quite frankly, everything that you expose yourself to affects you. And if you're constantly exposing yourself to stressful, timely, now kind of thing, it's going to affect you massively. And I've seen people come and I've seen people go because they don't realize this effect that the media has on their mind, even though they know what they're looking at. It's like going into war. You don't see soldiers who are perfectly well trained and things like that going to war and not being affected by it.
Yeah, it leaves a trauma on them for a very long time. Try talking to a lot of veterans. I mean, my gosh, I mean, look at the depression rates. I mean, among the veterans and the suicide. I mean, this stuff just tells you that there's some unnatural or just experiences that no human being should experience.
Well,
It shouldn't get to that level.
I wonder what the instance of, like you say, veterans, and I'm thinking about back in the day of like all these hundreds and thousands of activists that I've worked with over the years. And what are the rates of the suicide and depression and so on and so forth in their lives, or they've been fighting this war on the ground their entire existence that doesn't stop.
Well, to be fair, I would argue that most of society, the whole reason why all of society is having mental problems and depression and et cetera, those types of issues, is because of the unnatural world that we all live in collectively. Because like you said, as individuals gather this information or exposed to the same information, they're going to have the same reactions. And like if the media is being pumped out all the time, 24 hours a day, giving this constant fear to the public, what do you expect the reaction to be in the mass public? And are they encouraging the purpose within individuals to find that destiny that I speak of? to find that inspiration within themselves to say that, hey, I am free. That requires some level of internal inspiration, internal work, right? The one great work is not some external work. I talk about action. I'm not talking about external action necessarily. That comes after internal action. That comes after realizing that knowledge for yourself. Like I said, it's one to know the truth and another to know how to act on the truth. You have to start from the inside out. And that's how these words come out of my mouth. They come through the signals in my brain, and then they go through the mouth. This is how life works. And so it's as above, so below. The principle of correspondence in natural law, as we talk about a lot of the natural law teachers on the One Great Work Network. So yes, it's very reflective what people think and what people do, and perhaps even more powerful than we think because there's science that is coming out in a lot of different fields of medicine showing that, hey, the weather is telling people it's going to be partly cloudy this day. And, they don't say partly sunny, they say partly cloudy. And everybody starts thinking, oh, yeah, it's partly cloudy. It's going to be partly cloudy. Perhaps, I'm not saying that there's a direct correlation. I'm not saying that people's thoughts are directly necessarily creating the condition of the clouds in the sky, but what if we are just that powerful as human beings? Look at Dr. Emoto's experiments, where he talks to the rice and labels things on jars, and people are taking copper wires and trying to detect the energy frequencies in different areas. This science does not get in the mainstream for the very reason that it's powerful. It tells us there's more to life than what meets the eye or what we've been told. And that to me is just mind blowing. Just looking
Well, it's
into any
mind
aspect of it.
control. I mean, literally, there's two forms of mind control. Number one, Cory, you sound like you've got control of your mind. And talk to another person, it sounds like somebody else has control of their mind. You
Mm.
understand? And
Yeah.
the whole concept of control here just comes from that cult indoctrination. Fear, indoctrination, isolation, repetition, a central authority figure that can't be
Right.
questioned. It's basically, once you know cult indoctrination techniques, you realize that school, your job, your government, your media, your entertainment industry, your legal system, all of them use these exact same cult indoctrination techniques on their initiates. You'd be best to think of this world as yourself as some kind of a holy cleric going up against gargantuan apparatus of the dark demons that assail this world.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of techniques that they use. I mean, we know the Hegelian dialectic, problem, react, solution, and divide and conquer is been used for centuries, right? And it goes even further than that because that's just the surface. Those are simple techniques. I mean, look at the government and what they did with MK Ultra and the CIA experiments. I mean, you can go deep down the rabbit hole, but you'll find yourself there all day. I think the point is that people should make their own observations of the world. If I'm saying that we're living in a world that is somewhat unnatural, we need to recognize, well, then what is natural? And it's going to be hard to find in an unnatural world or surrounded by unnatural things, but it's something that I constantly stress through my works because my main message is nature is the answer. So when you say mind control can be seen in a good or bad light, depending on where the control is, I would say that's time and place, understanding the nature of control. Are you in control of your own body naturally? Do you come out of the womb with chains attached to you? No. You come out of the room with less reason, so people can maybe manipulate you, take advantage of you. But as you grow older, you develop your reason. Are you supposed to maintain slavery? Are you supposed to remain vulnerable? Or are you supposed to grow strong and nurtured and turn into a being who's capable of taking care of themselves? It's not somebody who's dependent on the government or dependent on their parents necessarily, even, right? It's
Well, the
understanding
Greeks
our power.
the Greeks had a saying of this is that it's a woman's job to take care of the child when the child cannot take care of itself, and it is a father's job to teach the child to take care of itself once it is able.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, both participants can nurture the child well accordingly to the environments and accordingly to their duties. Yeah, and the man has definitely some responsibilities that maybe the woman can't, but it depends on so many different factors. The main the point is to be conscious, right? The main point is to be aware of your environment, to say, well, what is needed for my child? What is necessary for their nature to be natural, to succeed, to be healthy, to be of reality? See, you can relate these words. Real, to do something real is something that promotes reality. To do something that's healing or something that's healthy is something that promotes health. To do something that is natural is something that promotes nature. And these I all correlate to one and the same. Even if you look at the word right? We talk about this word right and we talk about rights all the time. Well, what if something is rightful or righteous? It can help us be in the right, help us understand what is right. And that is a matter of purpose, or telos, as the Greeks would say, just because you wanted to have a Greek reference. And so this is something that has also been left out of philosophy. So it's not just our science under attack. It's not just our health under attack. It's philosophy. It's every part of our world, because everything is connected and integral to one another. So I think there's a major revival on the good side of things. There's definitely a major revival of a lot of these ideas because people at heart want it. It's in their nature to know of rights, of freedom, of truth, and they're not going to stop at it. It's going to be an inevitable, just human drive. That ant that's stuck in the jar and wants to get out is going to be trying to get out the entire time. Right? There might be some moments where we have to take a rest, where it's going to beat down on us, but eventually you're going to still want to get out. There's going to be this undying spirit within your soul. And at least I have it, and I know, you might have it, and especially with the experiences that we've had, some people have had very crazy experiences, and that also drives us to want to do more. I mean, luckily I haven't had too crazy experiences, but I've had similar things to what you had, and I think other people have too. And it's just that right there is kind of a taste of the medicine of our world. I think some people have had a taste of what that tyranny is, and
Yeah.
tyranny I can correlate to slavery.
I mean, I've been getting questions from people sometimes, and they say, "Vinny, how am I going to wake up my family? How am I going to wake up there? They don't listen or stuff like that." And I go, "Well, it's pretty simple. You call the cops. You tell them that they have like 600 pounds of fine cut heroin in their basement. The cops will go to their house, kick in the doors, smash up everything looking for it, and then charge them anyway, and then get them into court. Then start having a conversation with them about how tyrannical the government is. I'm sure they'll be quite receptive."
Yeah, it's a matter of conscience, right? Appealing to the individual person. If there's a person still left in that person, if they're not being totally masked by their identity or their ego taking control of who they are as a human being. So, for example, if somebody who calls themselves a cop or a politician and claims to have a position of authority, claims to have more rights than the average individual, they're saying they're essentially more human or have special human abilities that other human beings do not. This is a question as to, are they really human anymore? And then look at how they treat people. Do they treat them like, oh, I'm superior, I have more rights, so you have to get permission from me. If you want to do something, you have to respect me, or else I can do this. Everything you say will be used against you. Like, are they going to treat you like a slave, or are they going to treat you like a fellow human being? Because this right here is the surest day sign of slavery. Okay, I found out what the surest day sign of slavery is, and that is bad things happening to good people and good people letting bad things happen. That is ultimately the surest sign of slavery. And of course, I have many other ways you can detect slavery. That's why I wrote a whole book about it called Slavery Gone for Good. But if we just look at the nature of slavery itself, that answers everything we need to know about our world. And I'm telling you, I mean, we had slavery for over 6,000 years. Could we expect it to just go away immediately? Can we expect a class system that, first of all, created and allowed and maintained slavery, as Salmon Chase said, as Lysander Spooner said, as many abolitionists said? Can we expect that to just, go away? Can we say that chattel slavery is the only form of slavery and therefore we should just drop the word abolitionism out of our vocabulary? I'm not twisting the abolitionist words. I'm actually reviving exactly what they said. They talked about many forms of slavery, not just one. And that's why I talk about statism, which, again, if a lot of people have not heard of it, I recommend they look into this. This is what I call mental slavery. And you can look up quotes and you can look up information about mental slavery. And you know what? You'll actually find information about mental slavery from people like Mahatma Gandhi, from Bob Marley, and many others. who are all talking about it.
Is where there's
They
lower.
all talked about how mental slavery is the worst form of slavery. And there's no greater form. Martin Luther King Jr. said, if you are mentally enslaved, you're going to become physically enslaved. That's an issue with me because if people feel like they have to give other people rights that don't exist or give other people claims of ownership over their own property and say, you be responsible for my responsibilities, something that only I can be responsible for, that's an issue. That's a matter of, hey, I'm giving away my self-ownership to somebody else. It's not self-ownership anymore. That's not internal, government anymore, or natural authority, or natural government, or however you want to put it, internal monarchy. There's many ways to say the same thing, being a ruler of yourself, essentially. It's not that, it's external rulership. That's external monarchy. That's not external anarchy. That's not external freedom. That's external slavery. Slavery and tyranny is on one end, and then freedom and real anarchy is on the other end. And in case anybody is really, suspicious about my term anarchy, this is why I call myself an abolitionist, because I'm ending slavery. I'm not here to create anarchy. But what does anarchy really just mean? It just means no rulers. Well, does anybody naturally rule you? Does anybody naturally have the right to rule you? Morally, naturally, truthfully? Let me ask you that question. Because if you ask yourself questions along the lines of morality, which nobody in politics does nowadays, you will come to the conclusion that nobody has the moral right to rule over your life and property. And if they did claim to have that right, they're claiming to be a slave master or legitimize an act of slavery.
It's kind of like being a god. You
It
know,
is.
I,
It
I
is.
I don't got no rules, man. I get to do what I want.
Yeah, and technology allows that ability even further. Because think about it, technology now, they can do anything. They can literally try to put chips into your mind and spy on you, see everything you're doing. Back then in the 1800s, you had to make sure you got a receipt from your slave master to go plantation to plantation. You had to get permission, right, from your slave master. Well, it sounds an awful lot like the licenses and receipts we have to go have to do movement or anything like that. One of the sure signs of slavery is also restriction of movement, not just restriction of freedom, but not being able to go somewhere without, permission.
It's like they'd call the dignity of risk. If you take people's ability away to take risks with their own life, whatever that risk might be, it might be investing in something or whatever, you take dignity itself away from them. And I remember when I started doing this, I didn't think about the consequences of my actions. I didn't think, oh, people will, I'll lose all my friends and I'll go broke and so on and so forth. No. I was just like, okay, I've got this. I'm gonna go grab myself an iMac and a tripod and a handy cam, and I'm just gonna start making activism videos and stuff like that. Because I was inspired. I was moving on.
Right.
I was not caring about learning and listening anymore because I'd been absorbing 2 documentaries and maybe 6 hours of podcasting a day for like 6 months solid. My head was full. I needed to get out there and start doing something. And it's only once the opportunity presented itself where I actually could quit my job and go out and do this, and had a great partner at the time to support me on the side. Yeah, man, it was just, you can't really think about the consequences of doing the right thing. You just kind of have to do about the right thing and worry about the consequences afterwards, as David Icke said.
Mm. Right, and be responsible ultimately for what actions you do take. So you can be conscious going in of what actions you are taking, as you're saying, because you're understanding what is a right action. In order to understand what is a right action, you have to first be conscious of that action and its effects somewhat, at least. And then, yes, you can be confident as to your actions. And perhaps that action doesn't even include so much action, right? We talked about just education or just sharing the word, or people are all starting their own channels and podcasts and radios. And you know what? It's getting out to a lot of people. That by itself will cause action within people's own lives. I'm not asking you to go on the street and protest and, have my flag out there or buy my book or whatever, what have you. I mean, there's many ways you can approach this, and there's many ways you can act, and you have to find out ultimately for yourself. But as long as you're doing something, that's all that matters, because so many people are doing nothing. And even if it's just a conversation here and there in real life, or replacing political signs with signs that are universal and timeless that spark question is all I seek when I'm with people in real life. I'm constantly asking questions. I'm not telling them what to think. I'm not giving them a long list like, look how much you've been lied to. Um, that would overwhelm them. To some people who've never researched before, you said you've researched like hours a day. I mean, I think a lot of us were too, if we're very passionate and we care a lot about this information. But not everybody has to do that either, right? Maybe they can just start from a very basic level. Do they understand what freedom is? Do they understand what slavery is? Can they look around the world around them and see that people are going crazy, that there's chaos occurring? Because that within itself should motivate somebody and give them the moral obligation to say, man, you know what? I should probably do something. I should probably talk to someone. I should probably, get some questions going, maybe do some interviews, maybe put out some signs. It can go a long way, because you'd be surprised. I ask people all the time, how did you get to where you are? I didn't expect to get where I am. Did you expect to get to where you are? I mean, like, I didn't expect to get invited to the One Great Work Network. I didn't expect to become a video content creator or anything of the sort, right? I didn't even invite myself. Like, this is something I got into out of moral obligation, because I cared about the knowledge, about the information. So I just follow my calling, my purpose, right? Which, like I said, everybody should try to find that for themselves, because that's ultimately what humanity is trying to achieve within the world. If they're trying to seek freedom, and if they're saying freedom is a moral position, that it's something that's destined for humanity, they're saying that is the purpose for humanity, and we must follow that. And again, that part of philosophy has been taken out because Aristotle is too old of a philosopher, and there's all these new philosophers who came in with their mechanical worldview to say, no, there's no such thing as purpose or meaning. Let's just look at cause and effect. Let's just look at the science, and let's not connect it to anything like meaning or value or purpose, because that's when we start adding in feelings, which can't be described by science. Yeah, that's also when you take out humanity. That's also when you take out what makes us humans. And that's the very problem with this world, is we've sterilized ourselves, not just literally, but also in the mind. We've destroyed what makes us human, and it's going to continue like that unless we realize what we're doing. And so when I say nature is the answer, I'm not some like hippy dippy, like let's go back to the 60s and party with the hippies and, smoke marijuana and have a good time. But I'll be honest, if you were given the choice between the city life and, living on a beach, drinking some coconuts, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't hesitate which one to choose. Most people wouldn't. And when they do those heavy office jobs, they likely want to go to vacation somewhere very serene, because we're attached to it. And we don't realize how much we need it until we actually start to lose it. And we will lose our nature if we stop using our own nature, because we are a part of nature. And until we recognize that we must integrate and harmonize our actions and our effects with that of the world, there'll never be order, because we're orderly humans. We have a social nature. We are to interact with each other. That's why we create all these complex systems of religion and politics. But it's overdone ourselves to the point where we're wrapped in our own illusions, our own creations, and we lose touch with who we are ourselves. Again, because we're also putting external authority in other places, saying, well, this person has the best ideology, this person must be followed. And now we're not seeking our own environments, our own selves. It's like saying, well, my doctor knows everything about my health. It's like, okay, so you're going to put all your dependence of your health in the life of a doctor, because he's the expert, and he knows more about health than I do. It's like, okay, but does he know your body more than you do? Has he lived in your body? No, he can't. He simply cannot. Can he breathe for you? No, he can't. It's the same thing as a slave master claiming ownership over a slave. Do they have the right to do that? What gives them that right? That right doesn't exist. By any definition of rights, it doesn't exist. You know what definition of rights it does exist under? Legislation, because that legislation claims to create rights. But if rights are God-given and natural, then why are you creating legislation to create man-made rights and laws? Oh, because we must abide to natural law and natural rights. Well, that's kind of counterintuitive. If you're saying there's natural law and natural rights, where do you draw the line to say, hey, let's add in some man-made law and man-made rights? It's like, where do you draw the line and say, okay, well, humans could be free naturally to this extent, but they need some sort of man-made authority and system with all this fancy, smancy pieces of paper to this extent, and to who determines what extent that is, and who determines what exactly should be done? Because I'll tell you, over 6,000 years, we've been trying that, and it hasn't been working. But I guess we're just going to keep trying the same thing over and over again until we just completely kill ourselves, because again, it's the number one cause of unnatural death, democide. I mean, this is a concern, and for people to not realize that there is an alternative to that, which is abolitionism, which is recognizing that you're simply just free. You should just live your life free from all coercion.
Yeah, see, for
Creating
me,
a voluntary society.
it's like the hierarchy of threats. What are you afraid of? Your friends not liking you or getting exterminated?
Yeah, I mean, people have to really look at their priorities, right? What's really important in life, and a lot of people are going to look at their job, they're going to look at the day-to-day needs, and maybe this is a very unpopular statement, but there is greater work to be done than just that. Our material desires, the things that we deal with often on a day-to-day basis, that consume so much of our time, that distracts us, that keeps us away from that greater purpose or that greater meaning. That can only be invoked when we really sit down with our own selves, our own conscience, and really confront ourselves and say, what is it that I'm really trying to achieve in this world? And that's where you find happiness. That's where you find contentedness. And let me tell you, there's so many people, like especially around my age, my generation. I ran into it all the time when I was in high school. That was like 7 years ago for me. I'm pretty young in the network, one of the youngest people speaking in the network about a lot of this stuff. And I was talking to a lot of the kids, and I was helping them with depression and mental problems. I didn't expect to be like a little psychologist, but I was, because I was simply there for them. And I was simply like, hey, what's going on? I simply asked questions, and I helped them confront themselves. They wanted to say, oh, I'm this, I'm that, oh, I'm depressed, oh, I'm this. And they just want to like listen to music, get their mind off of it, or they don't have anybody to talk to about it. And that's the issue. And it's not that they need necessarily a psychologist or somebody to sit down with them that's an expert, but they just need human interaction. They need some sense of humanity left to question, like, can I still be human? Can I still express my humanity? When I go on a dance floor, I dance because I'm expressing my spirit, but this generation, I'm going to go on my phone, like I'm not going to pay attention. Oh, it's embarrassing. I don't want to express myself. Oh, did you see that dance? Oh, I'm going to copy this dance. It was on TikTok. Oh, it was on a music video. It's like, where's the creative spirit? And then you wonder why music is dead, why video games is dead. It's all just a reflection of the culture that we created, which is all just a reflection of our unnatural world. And it's not necessarily just because of the material things, it's because of man-made ideology. It's not just man-made things, it's man-made ideology. Politics and politicians is purely man-made.
I
It
wonder
is
what
not natural.
songs and things of that nature were told around the fire in ancient times in order to keep stories of morals and things of that nature alive. And now the songs that are being sung are about money and sex
Hmm.
and getting into new relationships and breaking up from them. And
Yeah, they perversed everything in nature.
like like seriously, think of any song to a large degree at this point in time, and that's what it's about. And only that, think about the classic songs of all times. They're all about those things, and the musical talents of higher consciousness and things of that nature. Yes, while there, they seem to be very much drowned out by that which has millions upon millions of dollars to promote their shit.
Yeah, and that's why people are still listening to songs from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, because they were made with some spirit, some soul. The last soul left in our world. A lot of people can see, and I'm not. This may be a boomer take, right? Because I'm like, but I'm new in this generation. I recognize that music, and I listen to today's music. I'm like, wait, the same beat, no instruments. These artists, they didn't make it to fame by themselves. I mean, that within itself tells me so much about the magicians and the people who get famous in this world. And then you see the censorship, right? We talked about this before. I mean, who is the people who are getting censorship, who are getting censored, and who are the people who are not? Who are the people that get risen to the top on the ad feeds and all the time? And I'm not jealous of their success. I don't care about success. I'm saying that these people are sort of propped up in their positions because they're propped up for a certain culture that is being created to keep people distracted and demoralized and desensitized to the point of perversion. And if you look into the modern day Church of Satan, which Mark Passio and many other people go into, the whole structure is perversion, even within their symbology. It's all about reversing that of which is natural or that of which is the truth, and twisting it on its head, or keeping it for themselves, their own ego, their own selfishness, embracing the instinctual side of humanity without the moral or conscience or high order side of humanity. And I would argue that, of course, both is essential. Both is part of our nature. We shouldn't leave one out or the other. But of course, our higher order bringing self is not going to be encouraged if people want to keep other people enslaved.
You ever see
In
where
order to have
like some bad thing happens and then people go, "Oh, it's just human nature," and it's just like, well, hold on a second, love, caring, honesty, decency, honor. These are just as much a part of our nature as all the rest.
that's used as an excuse to dismiss human responsibility. It's like saying natural disasters, which, if you do enough research on it, are not actually natural disasters, and they don't have to be disasters. They're humans building in the same spots each time, not aware that, yeah, there's a problem that can happen. And you should probably know that when you're moving there. And yeah, there's human ways that you can help adapt to the environment so that way you can prevent disasters from happening. But people don't look at it at a lens of responsibility or the human side of things. They always want to blame nature for the problem when it's actually, I'm saying, the answer in every case, whether you're looking at nature or human nature or the natures of all things, which requires knowledge. Okay, knowledge is the tying bind between all natures, because otherwise you can't define those concepts. You can't make an appeal to nature unless it's knowledgeable. Of course, it's a fallacy if it's unknowledgeable. See, in philosophy, they'll say it's an appeal to nature fallacy. It's a naturalistic fallacy. It's not a fallacy if it has knowledge behind it. If you cannot define what those concepts are, instead of just having them, like, oh, we don't know, it's just this, it's just that. Like, there's knowledge behind every action you take in this life. If there isn't knowledge, then you're going to act chaotically. You're going to act out of your instincts. Knowledge is that driving tie to freedom. So when a slave cannot read, cannot write, cannot think for themselves, they're going to remain a slave. And they're going to probably want to remain a slave. It's called peaceful slavery rather than dangerous freedom, as one of our founding fathers have said, right? And of course, they have many quotes that kind of go into this, funny enough, even though some of them might have had slaves, but it led up to the abolition of chattel slavery in the 1800s.
Yeah.
So you can just see how powerful those ideas are, that they moved on to a whole new generation of people questioning the whole institution of slavery after thousands of years having it everywhere in the world, and the whole economy was funded on it, that the government had to introduce taxation after.
Yeah.
Why? Because government is maintained by slavery. The very first government, Sumeria, was the very first form of organized slavery. Yeah, somebody can hold a slave personally, but they don't have a monopoly on violence to hold everybody a slave. Only the government can do that. Only the government can create an institution, which is what slavery is called. Only they can make an organized institution because they're organized. They create the system to have a system of slavery. Otherwise, it's just a bully. It's just a thug. It's just a criminal. But no, if it's authority, if it's politician, if it's government, somehow they have an exemption to what any other person did the same act would have. Or would people, how would people perceive them? People don't see authority the same way as they see a fellow person who does the same wrong action. They give authority the pass and say, oh, that's okay because they're authority. They can do this thing. But again, man-made authority, not natural authority. They claim to own you. They claim to own the land. They claim to own your property. That's why taxation is a thing. They claim to own what you earn. And a lot of people can understand taxation is theft, but a lot of people can also understand that a lot of other forms of legislation is also theft. And how long has it been written about? The abolitionists talked about it in the 1800s, and that's why I had to bring back their works. And, they were fighting one form of slavery, but like I said, they're not just fighting one form. And for that to just be taken out of history, for us to not look at who really sparked the idea of abolitionism to begin with, otherwise it would have never happened, I think you're missing a huge chunk in the puzzle. because we can look at the founding fathers from the 1700s, but there's a lot more people after that who did a lot more work. In the 1800s, you started to see all sorts of things rise up, and you started to see the Federal Reserve and how they took people's money and on all these different crimes leading into the 1900s into where now we are right now. I mean, think about it. It's not even been 200 years since these things happened. And look how fast the years go by in your life. This stuff is very relatively new to humanity. Even slavery is relatively new if you can consider that it was only been a couple of thousand years. And science, modern science says humans have been here on Earth for hundreds of thousands of years. So something is definitely not right. And if you just look at the law codes back in the day, from the very first governments, the Code of Hammurabi or the Code of Ur-Nammu, they're talking about how they create such great systems for peace and equality and justice and preventing the strong from oppressing the weak. Meanwhile, they hold slaves. Meanwhile, they tell who is free and who is the slave. So they have people thinking that they're free, and some people thinking that they're meant to be slaves. And the people who are free are not even entirely free either, because they're given permission to be free by their ruler, by the ruler of Samaria or any other ancient empire during that time.
It's just
Samaria
liars
yeah.
and BS artists are as old as time itself, kind of thing. Because look,
Yeah.
look, if again, I say this on the show many times. If somebody came up to you and told you what the rewards for lying are, that you get a hell of a lot of money and a hot missus and get invited to all the best parties and be famous and adored by everybody, versus telling the truth, where virtually the opposite is true. A lot of people wouldn't choose honesty. They wouldn't choose decency if somebody was just straight up with them like that, because ultimately they're more concerned about what their life is like rather than what happens as a result of you getting all that stuff rather than it being shared round.
Yeah, and anyone with a conscience should feel some guilt. And this is why then they have to bury that guilt by doing even more bad things. And then other people will legitimize what they're doing. And so they'll say, okay, well, I'm in it now. I can't escape it. And, oh, well, the slave is participating on the plantation, so I'm not going to get rid of the slave. He's already a slave for me. He enjoys this life. He's already a slave, so why should I free the slave? That's the mentality of the slave master. The slave, it's the same thing. Oh, if I escape, oh, the slave master is going to bring violence upon me. He's going to bring his slave patrol, which is now modern day policing, and they're going to go find me and they're going to go capture me and they're going to bring me back to the plantation. They're going to make me work even harder. They're going to whip me, right? And that is the mentality of, oh, if I disobey authority, if I disobey my master, my ruler, I'm going to be punished. And it still goes on to this day.
Oh yeah,
the
man.
very
There's a lot of
same
stuff.
mentality.
There's a lot of stuff I'm not doing anymore because of a result of how the system came down on me. And that's the real problem as well, is because you look at all these solutions that are being bandied about. We've got to have new media. We've got to have a natural law council and so on and so forth. These people have guns and mind-controlled slaves and advanced surveillance technology. What do you got? That kind of thing. We're not looking at the situation with perhaps the reality goggles that we should. That this is life or death. It's us or them. And these people, the evil doers, they understand this as well. And that's why they're willing to put us to death. That's why they're willing to crush us into a million pieces so that we are unable to fight.
Yeah, besides, it's their ideology, right? It's social Darwinism, survival of the fittest. Whoever survives is the people who are meant to live on. Whoever's strongest is meant to live on and rule over others. If you're born into a certain bloodline, you have the special right to rule because you got to that over generations of time. You're meant to be in that bloodline, so you better keep up with it. Otherwise, you're going against the family. It's such a very barbaric notion of like, well, let's just disregard every other human being. Let's not regard them equal. With the same rights. And I totally I totally feel you on the whole sense of let's look at reality and let's look at how things are, but also without a little bit of imagination, without a little bit of drive and question and purpose and meaning and value within people's lives, they will never create a new condition, even if it's for themselves. Okay, even if they can't free the whole species, if you free your own mind, that does wonders, does it not, Vinny? I mean, like you've definitely questioned your life, right? I'm sure you've done all these different podcasts and stuff with people, and I'm sure that's helped you question yourself and get you more conscious within your own life, getting you to do better actions within your own life. I'm sure it has some benefit that you wouldn't have achieved otherwise.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. Like it's
Yeah, but
well, look at it this way. Look at it this way. Have
sure.
you ever noticed when you're talking to somebody about their job, they sound really boring because they're not actually interested. They don't actually care, and
Mm,
it just drains the life out of you. I don't do
yeah,
that because what I do has meaning, what I do has purpose, what I do
right.
is interesting, what I do matters.
There
And
you go.
ultimately, that is something you're right. I couldn't have got that doing anything else.
Hmm. Yeah, like you had that internal drive, and I'm telling you, everybody does. And until they find that for themselves, they're going to be unfulfilled. It's like not having a nutrient depletion or having a deficiency. Your body is just going to be trying to seek all these other things, like, oh yeah, chocolate, oh ice cream, oh salt, and it's like your body doesn't really want any of those things. It really just wants minerals. It really just wants nutrients, and you're giving it everything else because it's your body's trying to search for answers, and those are the most convenient answers close and local to you. But when you really sit down conscious with yourself and say, well, what is it that I really need? And then you find that, and then you grab onto that, and just you find a grasp of where you can find it, find a grasp of freedom, a touch of freedom. Like what we're doing right now, this is a freedom interaction. This is an essence of freedom. It may not be okay, we're all free living our lives as we should be, but we are expressing freedom right now within the moment. So we have some sense of destiny here. There's a sense of destiny in everybody who's also listening to this message because they want to hear, because they want to see what solutions are there. That is all for a reason, because otherwise you have no reason to click on the stream or watch the video or join the movement or whatever, to look into the information. That is driving your behaviors. It's this internal destiny. And it's just that powerful that it's caused every religion on earth, every political status on earth. It is the drive behind all of those. Just people get misguided. They get wrapped in illusions. Those illusions are pretended to be real, pretended to be natural, right? So take a look at government. People think it's meant to exist. They think it is natural. And so because of that, they legitimize its existence. But when they understand nature in its totality as the answer, as by their knowledge, as by their consciousness, as by understanding what is really natural, then it changes. Their whole worldview changes. That's why natural law is important if you're stuck in a system of man's law, because it's natural. It's the same way why natural medicine is important if you're stuck in a man-made medicine world, because it's natural. It's something that is destined for humanity because it's been used for thousands of years. It's always been here. It's been something that we have at our resource, our ability. It's our mind. It's our consciousness. It's our body to heal, our blueprint in the world. The blueprint of the world is the natural laws. The blueprint of the body is the anatomy, healing, the immune system, attacking those free radicals that are coming in, the antioxidants coming in to fight the free radicals, the enzymes helping you break down the food. Everything works in an orderly fashion. And the only thing that's not orderly in this world that we find ourselves constantly in conflict is with ourselves, our own minds, our mentalities, our belief systems, what ideologies have persisted. We don't have to worry about all the man-made things or the bad people in the world or how much liars will lie for what they want in this world if we can understand what statism is. That's how powerful statism is, because statism is legitimizing any form of evil. And slavery is the extreme form of statism, because again, if you want to look at it, physical slavery, it's the resultant condition of mental slavery, statism. Physical slavery is government. It's the condition of slavery. Mental slavery is statism, which contributes to government. It's what creates the state, statism for the state. Okay, that's the belief in government, that man-made government is real, legitimate, should exist. It's essentially saying, well, natural government, God's government it's in control, but we need man to uphold what God created. So let's write down fancy pieces of paper for worship and make sure it's backed by violence so everybody follows. I mean, we start creating all these ideologies, and then we feel like we have to victimize every individual within that society. Say, oh, well, this person has a problem. Well, we have to make a law for that. Oh, this person has a problem. We have to make a law for that. And then soon you have millions of laws like we do right now. Nobody knows any of them. Nobody has ever read even the tax code and any of it. And they're just all confused. Everybody's wrapped in confusion. confusion, and people are just following orders, doing what they're told, and that's statism. It's following orders. It's saying, yeah, okay, this person's meant to be in this position. They're meant to rule. Oh, yeah, we always need to have a slave master, a president, a minister. Well, it's always the way it's been, so it's clearly just got to stay that way. Oh, and if you want to change the system, you just have to replace the master or replace the ideology, but don't question the system itself. It's like saying, well, oh, the slave deserves a better slave master, so let's get a new slave master, or let's get him to a better plantation. But what about the very act of slavery itself? That has to be questioned, because if that is immoral, then anything else that comes from it is also going to be immoral. So if you create a basic foundation for all that is unnatural, then everything will be unnatural from it the same way. Same way, if you create an unhealthy system and you manifest that to where everybody believes that this unhealthy system must pertain, the only way people are going to learn from this unhealthy, unnatural, or unrightful system is if they get hurt. And that is what happens. Is experience is people's awareness, their awakening to what's happening, rather than their awareness itself. Rather than sitting down with their own conscience and sitting down and say, yeah, okay, I need to understand what this world is about, and observing and taking the time to really sit back. No, we're in a rush society. Everybody's got to do this, and that, right? This is the reality goggles, like you said. But the thing is, if you can take that step back, like the writer does, like the poet does, like the person who writes the script, or the person who works on a beautiful magic music piece, which is magic, or they work on a great game that has never been designed before, that requires patience and great dedication to detail, which requires a lot of tenacity and this tedious work, which is not expected of society. It is not encouraged in society. And that's why it causes so much innovation, however, within society, because so many people are unwilling to do that work, or they don't know how to do that work. But those people who do that achieve that from their own internal work, because that allows them to put out the external work, as I said before. So it is important that there's an individual level to it. And we can put on reality goggles and say, yeah, this is what reality is. But then we get trapped in reality when we know for a fact it's not reality. It's not natural reality. It's not the reality we're meant to be living. The natural reality that we're meant to be living is one that we don't understand because we're not living in it.
Speaking of which, I understand that I badly need to take a wiki leak. So keep talking. I'll be right back.
Sure. And people fear the unknown, right? People fear what things they don't really know about. And that's why when you do grasp knowledge, you start to really get a sense of what needs to get done. And so that is a powerful flash of light. As Benjamin Franklin says it, I all the time I come up with ideas and I get a flash of light. And that's when the best ideas come. It's like I need to make sure I write that on the piece of paper and go forward with it. And a lot of writers, a lot of people with creative ability that I've met do the same thing. These ideas come to them in a flash of light, because you have to be in the right moment at the right time and things happen. And so, yes, awakening is going to happen to some people through experience. It's not always going to happen through awareness. And that's going to make them aware. But if you can achieve it through awareness, of course, that's ideal, because then you don't have to get hurt before you do get hurt. And you can prevent the problem rather than just treating the problem, which is what we do in healthcare today. All we do is treat issues, treat diseases, treat problems, but we never prevent the problem from happening in the very first place. Prevention is never encouraged, because treatment is symptom-based. It's only looking at, again, what rises to the surface. So that's why, again, people like on the media talking about what happens, what rises to the surface, but it is not the root cause of the problem. The problems will keep arising until you get to the root cause of the problem. And sure, there's always going to be criminals. There's always going to be people who cause harm to other individuals. But the question is, again, how does that individual gain further ability to continue doing harm? And the only way they can continue doing harm is if everybody thinks that that harm is legitimate. Like, oh, yeah, this person can do it. That, again, is statism.
All right. And we're back now. Cory, it's been a great show, bro. And I've got like a whole bunch of things to plug and advertise before we go. But before we do, where can people find your work? Just on onegreatworknetwork.com?
Yeah, they can find it on the onegreatworknetwork.com. Also, just look up Cory, Nature is the Answer. and you'll find my work. So that's Cory, Nature is the Answer. I wrote 2 books. One is Slavery Gone for Good, Modern Abolitionism, which goes into the truth of what slavery is, the whole nature, from its act to its condition and its history and definitions and more. It's question and answer format with more than half the book quotes from abolitionists as well. And then I have a second book called Sapientia Naturae, which is Latin for the wisdom of nature, which goes into the philosophy that I speak of with looking at what's natural, looking at natural law, natural health, natural medicine, and understanding for ourselves what deep reflection that we might have to do for ourselves. But I'm just a fellow guide. I'm just a fellow human being. I don't want you to believe me in what I'm saying. I want you to look into this for yourself. What I make as a fellow guide is just education. I'm just a teacher, just like you. You have knowledge that I don't. I have knowledge that maybe you don't. We share with each other. And I look for people right now who want to make a difference. So if you're somebody who wants to make a difference, you want to teach others, you want to share information on a universal and timeless scale, I have a newspaper that's free and public. Anybody can contribute to it. It's coming up next year, but people can pre-submit articles now. That's nita.one/newspaper. And I have a summit event with many, many speakers. I want to invite Vinny to the event as well. But like Mark Passio, Derek Brose, and many others who are going to speak. And it's going to be great. It's called the End of Slavery Summit. And it's not out yet for advertising. Right now, we're just getting all the speakers together, getting all the interviews together. And then after that, we'll advertise for it. Other than that, there's other projects always at work. So stay tuned and keep it out there. Vinny, keep up your great work and dedication. Don't let anything stop you.
Yeah, well, there's one thing that will stop me is getting exterminated. So until that happens, I don't really have much of a choice.
Your soul will live on, my friend.
Yeah, but I kind of like this this particular variant of my soul. It's just like, hey, there's a lot of talent here. There's a lot of fun to be had in dark times. Maybe this is kind of important. Maybe you can unite people. Maybe you can do so on and so forth. There's a lot of potential with this particular come round on this life, and I'm rather attached to it. I call it self-preservation, and a lot of people don't seem to possess that kind of instinct.
Yeah.
Oh, government tells me to go do this, I'll just go and do it. Where's your self-preservation, Mo? Like, honestly. You were saying something before, and I've got a number of little thingies before I go and do my
Sure.
plugging and whatnot, because free radicals. I remember I was sitting with my drummer Barack, and we were talking about free radicals, and we didn't know what one was. And it's basically a little organism that steals electrons, it steals energy from your body, and the entire reason why disease in any path or even aging itself occurs, the same reason that machines rust is the same reason why we die of old age. Electron theft. So the thing is, the world is kind of like a reflection, a refraction, if you will, for most things that exist. Think of a free radical as a psychopath. Now, what he does is he comes into the body. He sees this little cell that's full of energy and full of life, and he goes, hey, wow, you're so talented. Man, I wish I could do what you do. Maybe I can turn you into a star or something. Here, just sign this contract. The cell signs a contract, and then all of a sudden, snatch! And he grabs his electrons. And this little cell's like, oh, kind of like being taken unawares. And he's like, oh my God, what did that do to me? And he's sitting there and he's crying while this free radical runs off with his electrons. and then now you get the antioxidant. All right, the activists of the microverse, antioxidants come into the bloodstream, and he sees this damaged cell, and the cell's sitting there, all depressed, going, and the antioxidant comes up to me and says, "Hey, buddy, what's wrong?" And he goes, I met this guy, and he said he'd make me famous and everything, and then he just stole everything from me. Hey, it's okay. It's okay. Look, I've got some electrons here. You can have them, and you can get back to your life. And the cell's like, really? And the antioxidant's like, yeah. The cell can't believe it. It's like, you just kind of restore my faith in humanity. Like, how can I ever repay you? And the antioxidant says, You'll never have to. It doesn't matter how many people have been inspired by the show, or how many people have messaged me telling me they were about to commit suicide until they start living the show, or how many activists were going to give up their activism until they came on the show, and so on and so forth. None of that matters to me, okay? What's important is that it matters to them. What matters is that I made a difference by doing what I was doing, because I didn't take any action. I took an energy that was mine and I gave it to others that were damaged, and allowed them to repair themselves and come back from the brink and start becoming a healthy part of this grand organism that we call world, right? This world is ours and we are part of it. And whether or not you realize, we all play a role. Just like every cell does in the human body, all of us play a role in this world. And ultimately there are those who don't want us to succeed. And unfortunately, they won't stop, and that requires sacrifice on our part in order to survive, in order to live, in order to fulfill our purpose. I tell people, don't listen to the show. If you've listened to the show for a while, and you've gotten everything you need, you've gotten all your little well springs of information and things of that nature creeping up on you, and you want to get out the door and you want to start doing something, turn off the show. That's what it's here for. Turn it off. You don't need it anymore. Go out there and do something with the knowledge that is provided for you. Nobody's ever, asked me to pay them to be on this show. Everybody's always come here with their own knowledge that they're prepared to share for free, for the benefit of humanity. Every single one, thousands of them, huge names even.
Yeah.
That's why we're all in it.
All the projects I create is free. All the videos I make is free. I after 3 years, I still don't really, I never have ads. I never really advertise for anything. The books are probably the only thing now that I have going, like with monetary on it, just so it can get out to more people potentially. But like, dude, yeah, we're doing this out of the care for our heart. And I encourage people to check out as well, nita.one. That's nita.one. Because there's a bunch of resources on there for action. And that is the movement website that I created with a learn button and an action button. I mean, it can't really get any simpler than that. So I would recommend checking it out. And there's a share button, of course, which is alongside the action button. And that allows you to get flags, brochures that I've made, business cards that lead to information, all sorts of things. And I encourage people to customize it and make their own. And if they need any help at all, feel free to reach out. If you need any help with creating your own media of any kind, I'm willing to help. Like, I've helped a lot of people out for free. I have no problem with that. I'm not in it for the money. We're not in it for the money. I'm pretty sure, you're not in it. I'm not in it for the money.
Well, I mean, speak for yourself. I came up with the world's worst business model. I want to make money by telling the truth.
Oh, okay. That was your business model?
Yeah, well. It's like Mark Passio says, it's right livelihood, I mean, seriously. Is there something wrong with having enough coin to pay your bills? I don't think so. And no. And speaking of that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not sure if I'll be able to buy food this week, but I do need at least $100, just 100 New Zealand dollars. I think that's like 75 US or something like that, just to be able to pay the rent tomorrow and the power and internet bill and stuff like that. So I'm just about $100 short. So if people could donate that, immediately, that'd be great. That'd be stress off my mind. I won't be able to do anything this weekend with just that, but it's man, it's a tough situation that I'm in right now. I remember this like 15 years ago. When I had no audience, when I was just starting, when I had no reputation, and nobody to help me, kind of like in the beginning, it was like I'm living now. I mean, the circumstances have changed somewhat, but I'm starting to revisit this kind of mode of scarcity, and it's. It was familiar to me for many, many years, and now it's become slightly unfamiliar. And so it's like frustrating to have to go through it again. But, it's like an undulating curve. It goes down, and then it comes back up. And then it goes down and it comes back up. So ultimately, all you got to do is just reevaluate what it is that you're doing and do a little bit better, do a little bit more. And then, boom, the problems get solved. And the last couple of months have been like this, right on the razor's edge, and then right when I need what I need, it's there. So it's been a bit more of a roller coaster. But hey, mate, this life is stressful all the time anyway, as Tanya Bauer says in the in the chat room there. Never a truer word was said. Whoever envisaged that going up against technologically advanced sociopathic demons would be a stressful career choice? I didn't see it coming. So go to the VinnyEastwoodShow.com/donate.html, where you can request a guest, have a private call with me, and please give me a call, ladies and gentlemen. I want to talk to people. And you can get my help with your media project or idea, and you can access the Secret Donors Club on Facebook. And you can donate through PayPal, KiwiBank, and the band through Patreon. As well, Vinny and the Vendettas. And I need to put the Patreon link on the Vinny and Vendettas page. I just found that out. And thank you very much to our other sponsors as well, HoldenHealthCare.com. We just did a conference with them recently. I'm having a meeting about it tomorrow. Might be getting that stuff edited out to you, but it might be pay-per-view, ladies and gentlemen. But regardless, go to HoldenHealthCare.com if you need a naturopathic oncologist who's a specialist in hard-to-treat cases. Also, my man Henry, he is sponsoring the show as well, reopen.nz. It is a directory of anti-mandate, pro-choice, all-inclusive businesses in New Zealand. So go to reopen.nz to put your freedom business on there, ladies and gentlemen, be counted with all the many others from various eclectic fields and all around the country. And also I thought about the idea of, hey, go in and search your area and go to support these freedom businesses on reopen.nz and tell them where you found them. You found them on the Vinny Eastwood Show. Wouldn't that be nice? Speaking of the Vinny Eastwood Show, it cannot work without the archiving at this point, and the lovely Julia, if you go to the show archives page on the VinnyEastwoodShow.com and click on it, click on archive, any archive, and down here, down the bottom of it, there will be Julia's archiving work support station, so you can give her donations through KiwiBank, set up automatic payments, just $5 a month or something like that, to give her a hand through Patreon or PayPal, whatever you can, to support the archiving work, because we lost nearly 15 years' work during the deplatforming of 2021. Peopleforpeople.ning.com have picked up the show, and we were broadcasting for a bit of time, and Billy TK is now live on that stream, peopleforpeople.ning.com. All you got to do is get yourself a little account there, and you put in your request, and they will approve it in due course. And that way, it is a completely private network where you can say and do whatever y'all please, so long as it, of course, doesn't violate natural law, of course. And speaking of which, I'm very grateful to be part of the One Great Work network, and grateful that Mark Passio has invited me on with a huge quantity of different contributors that they have there, of course, including yours truly and Cory himself. So again, go to onegreatworknetwork.com and check out all these creators and see if you can flick a buck their way too. And for more information about my arrest, go to the show archives, the day democracy died on the Vinny Eastwood Show. Just go to the VinnyEastwoodShow.com and click in the little search bar up the top, the day democracy died, the arrest of Billy TK and Vinny Eastwood. You should be able to find it on there. It's on BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble, that kind of thing. So search Vinny Eastwood, Billy TK, and you should be able to watch the arrest and the well-edited little 33-minute and 33-second documentary. Isn't it Masonic? Don't you think? Anyway, and of course, please go support Vinny and the Vendettas on Patreon. I just made a new song 2 o'clock in the morning called Frustrated. And who was it? We had Ralphie .co.nz, who also streams the show and puts up podcast versions of it. Thank you very much, Ralph, for that. He let me know about bandcamp.com the other day. So I was like, yeah, I created my Bandcamp account today. And I found out that I was listed on IMDb. Because of somebody's
You're famous.
Somebody's podcast that I was on, or something like that. The Quite Frankly podcast, I think it was. I was a guest on their show one time, and they have an IMDb account, and they put me up and mentioned my name in there, and I was just like, oh my god, I'm finally there. I still don't think I have a Wikipedia page though, or anything, but I did go into the IMDb page and like fill in some stuff and edit it a little bit and whatnot. But we'll see if they approve it.
Wow.
But
You're
yeah.
famous.
Regardless.
Skip that one.
Thank you very much, Cory, for coming
Hey,
on
you're
with us
famous
today.
in my view, okay? I like you, all right? Just saying.
Yeah. Cheers, brother. So, I get that a lot. Also, the last thing, God, I've covered those.
Twitch.tv/Kukunut.tv.
But
turn from my links. It's going to take like another 30 minutes.
Well, but maybe
I'm joking.
We're already 20 minutes over show time, so there you do another 30 minutes of that. It'll wrap up a nice 2 hours. It's the fastest 2 hours in talk radio. It's kind of like your mum was so dumb it took her 2 hours to watch 60 Minutes. And what am I talking about here? Yeah. Well, satanic inversion. All right. So what's happening in society right now is basically just a whole scale mass of satanic inversion. What's that, Vinny? Well, you take a normal Christian cross and then you turn it upside down. It's now a satanic cross. All right. You take a normal healthy childhood, you turn it upside down into scumbaggery, and now, hey presto, it's satanic. You take ordinary truth that comes from a man's mouth, and then you turn it into lies. That's satanic inversion. All right. Imagine for a moment that's frickin' everywhere all the time, and it ain't stopping anytime soon. All right. And the reason for this is, of course, this is the way the universe is structured. It reflects things. It gets countenance influence throughout various different veins. And as I mentioned very many times before, I was being interviewed on a show by some American hosts, and they go to me, "So Vinny, is the earth flat or is it round? Give it to us straight." And I was like, well, I think it's a holographic fractal projection of collective consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. All right? And they were like, whoa. And, it sounds complex. And this is just the structure of the universe and our place in it. And it is complex, but it's not complicated. All right? Hologram's like a hard drive, except if I took a photo of Cory and put it on a hard drive and deleted it, that picture's gone. If I took it and put it in a hologram and tried to delete it, the whole picture of Cory's still there. It's just half the resolution now. Nothing that ever actually really gets created into reality can ever really truly be destroyed. Even when you burn some wood in a fire, the particles of wood become particles of smoke. There's still traces of it there. Okay? And it's the same with all your actions, all your thoughts. The second part of this is the fractal. If you look inside your finger, you'll find a cell. You look inside that cell, you'll find it's made up of all these other cells that don't realize they're a part of a bigger cell. And if you look inside one of those, same thing. You look further and further down you go, and as above, so below. What if I'm a cell on a bigger cell called a planet, which is a part of a bigger cell called a galaxy, which is part of a bigger cell called the universe, which is part of a bigger cell that is called something we don't even have a name for yet because it's too freaking big for us to even conceptualize. All right? Everything's basically just a smaller or larger version of something else, and nothing that's created or nothing that exists, like energy, can ever be truly destroyed. And now this is where the collective consciousness comes into it. These guys did the thing called a double slit experiment where they had these two metal slits and a proton gun. Now what they figured they were going to do is just fire the proton guns through the slot, and it'd hit the aluminium foil behind and go bang, bang, and they figure out how the particle exploded or something, right? It didn't. It went bang, and it turned into a waveform on the aluminium foil, and they're like, whoa, that's cool, man. What happens if we put a little camera there just beside that slot to see what happens as it's going in? Bang! Bang! Oh, the particle reacted differently because it knew it was being observed. It got stage fright. That means that that particle had consciousness. And if protons have consciousness, that means everything has consciousness. Neutrons, electrons, morons, all of it. All right? And so this means that the entire universe is conscious, and it's starting to create things with its consciousness at all times that is affecting everything, down through the fractal, up through the hologram. And this is where you come in, because you're experiencing it subjectively. I'm experiencing it as Vinny, you're experiencing it as Cory. If you're listening, you're experiencing it as whoever you think you are. And the point of it is that if you're a human being, you've got fifth dimensional consciousness. All right. What does that mean, Vinny? It sounds all spacey. Yes, it is a little bit. But again, it sounds complex, but it's actually pretty straightforward. First dimension is a dot. You can perceive a dot. Second dimension's a line. Third dimension's a box. And the fourth dimension is that box moving through time. And the fifth dimension is the box, but it's beyond time, beyond space. And that's where all your thoughts exist. Everything that you don't say, everything that you don't do, that's all fifth dimensional. Doesn't really exist until you spend your fourth dimensional time getting that idea out of your head and willing it into three-dimensional reality. Only there can it be seen or smelled or tasted or touched. Only there do your ideas have value. And every time that you bring an idea into existence that doesn't really exist before, you change all of existence a tiny little bit. Every cell in your body, every cell in the universe gets changed just a tiny little bit because you made that song, because you did that podcast, because you fixed that car. You see? That's how important your actions truly are. And you might not be the prime beneficiary of the things that you do in life. And nor should you think that that's your primary purpose either. The Greeks believed that your job in life is to plant a tree whose shade you shall never get to sit beneath. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Ladies, gentlemen, slaves of the global plantation. The Vinny Eastwood Show is bad news. It's like the news, but worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because they're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child trafficking Satanists is Vinny's jokes. I mean, seriously, they're just awful.